Tonight, the family of Scot Jagtar Singh Johal, who spent the last 6 years detained in India on terrorism charges, meet the Foreign Secretary David Cameron, who pledges to look again at the case.
No, I'm not satisfied at all. I expected for someone that's run the country, who's been a Prime Minister, to actually have solid, constructive answers.
Also making the headlines, an 82-year-old man is arrested following the death of an elderly woman in Ayrshire. A police investigation is underway.
The driving instructor who says potholes are so bad, he now teaches how to get your car round a crater.
And in sports, after Scotland are denied a last-gasp try against France, World Rugby are satisfied that officials followed correct protocols. I'm Courtney Cameron in Edinburgh.
And I'm John Mackay in Glasgow. This is the STV News at 6. Good evening. The family of a Scottish man detained in India on terrorism charges say they're not satisfied at all after meeting the Foreign Secretary David Cameron. Speaking on his first visit to Scotland since taking up the role, the former Prime Minister said he would look again at the case to make sure the UK government is doing the right thing.
Jagtar Singh Johal from Dumbarton has been imprisoned for more than 6 years. A UN human rights group previously found there is no legal basis for Jagtar to be held by authorities. His family say time is critical. Here's our political reporter Laura Alderman.
The first dance on Jagtar Singh Johal's wedding day in India in 2017. Just weeks after travelling from Dumbarton to Punjab for the big day, he was arrested and detained on terrorism charges. His family maintain his innocence, but Jagtar now faces the death penalty as a result of his campaigning for Sikh rights.
He was subjected to 4 days of mistreatment and torture. The mental torture continues with the prolonged delays. 2,293 days we've been separated from my brother, an uncle, his nephews, his wife. So it's an impact it has on everyone.
This morning, the family were given fresh hope after meeting with the Foreign Secretary David Cameron on his first visit to Scotland since returning to politics.
Do you feel reassured now after this meeting with David Cameron?
No, I'm not satisfied at all. I expected for someone that's run the country, who's been a Prime Minister, to actually have solid, constructive answers as to why they have not been able to bring Jagtar back home. Jagtar has been declared arbitrarily detained by the UN Working Group of Arbitrary Detention, but it appeared that he wasn't fully prepared of me asking these questions I asked of him. Time is of the essence. We will now find out, has he actually taken what the family said on board, and if so, how quickly he takes action on it.
The family have dealt with 6 different foreign secretaries in the 6 years of Jagtar's imprisonment.
So how will your approach be different? Do you agree that he's been arbitrarily detained, and are you calling for his release from the Indian government?
What we're saying is that the Indian government has got to speed up this case. That's what we said. We also want to keep the consular access that we've had. But what I've said to the family is I'm going to go back to my office, I'm going to go look at the paperwork all over again, I'm going to take into account what they've said and see whether there's a different approach we should be taking. I've made absolutely no promises that it will be different, but what I have said is I take these cases very seriously. I'm going to re-examine everything and make sure we're doing the right thing.
Throughout Jagtar's detention, the family have been supported by their local MP.
The UK government does need to make a statement about what it believes is right or wrong about the UN Working Group's definition of arbitrary detention, because if they have doubts about the validity of that, then that's very problematic both for them and for Jagtar as well. So he needs to be very clear, the Foreign Secretary, why he does not agree with the UN Working Group's definition on Jagtar's detention, and he needs to do so quickly.
The family are now waiting for a promised follow-up from Lord Cameron as they continue fighting to bring Jagtar home. Laura Alderman, STV News, Clydebank.
A pensioner has been arrested following the death of an 81-year-old woman in Ayrshire. Police were called to her home in Irvine around noon yesterday and say the death is being treated as unexplained. Our reporter Ollie Dickinson is at the scene for us tonight.
Emergency services were called to an address here on Macara Drive around midday yesterday. When they entered, they say they found the body of an 81-year-old woman inside. An 82-year-old man was also found inside the property with injuries. He was taken to hospital and has since been arrested. Now, police say that the 82-year-old woman's death is currently being treated as unexplained, and STV News understands that the two people did know each other. Police say inquiries are ongoing, and as you can see, they remain on the scene this evening. This is a quiet residential street in the heart of Irvine, and locals have been coming and going throughout the day, although none I've spoken to have wished to go on camera. Ollie Dickinson, STV News, Irvine.
The writer, broadcaster and campaigner Simon Fanshawe has been announced as the next rector of Edinburgh University, but the appointment has immediately run into opposition from some members of staff.
Mr Fanshawe was one of the founders of the gay rights group Stonewall in the 1980s, but more recently has criticised the organisation, claiming its position on transgender issues undermines women. Here's our senior reporter, Gordon Cree.
Good evening. Good evening. Thank you very much indeed.
A one-time comedian who won the Perrier Award at the Edinburgh Fringe, these days Simon Fanshawe is a consultant on diversity and inclusion. In the last few years, he's been critical of Stonewall for what he sees as the shutting down of debate around transgender rights, self-ID and the impact on women. Some university staff are unhappy with his appointment.
He has an excellent history of supporting gay and lesbian rights and continues to do so. But also, he speaks negatively and just offensively to me and many people I know about trans people, and that is upsetting that the University of Edinburgh feels like this is someone who is suitable to have as our rector.
But the group For Women Scotland have welcomed Mr Fanshawe.
Universities should be places where we can have respectful conversations, and when it's someone like Simon who is a thoughtful and a very, very decent, intelligent man, and he has faced this sort of, frankly, abuse from people who don't know what they're talking about, it's absolutely shameful.
The role of rector is traditionally elected by students to preside at the university court where decisions over governance are taken. The post is currently held by lawyer and activist Deborah Kayembe. Previous rectors have included Winston Churchill and, before his political career, Gordon Brown.
Those who've got to bear the brunt of decisions taken should have the chance to have their say.
The subject of an STV documentary about the role in the 1970s. Simon Fanshawe's appointment comes after he was the only candidate, so no election was held.
Simon Fanshawe has said he hopes his role will help promote mutual understanding in the exchange of ideas. But tonight, to some degree at least, it appears to be proving divisive amid the ongoing tensions between inclusion and freedom of expression.
Mr Fanshawe wasn't available for interview today, but on Twitter he said, "I do not and have never campaigned against the legitimacy of trans people. We need rigorous discussion on how we can reach the best solutions for all." He'll take up his post in March. The university says it's looking forward to working with him. Gordon Cree, STV News, Edinburgh.
To other stories, and in Shetland, a 39-year-old man has been arrested following the death of a woman. Police were called to reports of a disturbance in the Sandness area just before 5 o'clock yesterday evening. The 24-year-old woman was pronounced dead at the scene. The man was arrested and taken to hospital, and officers have confirmed they're not looking for anyone else in connection.
The country music star Shania Twain will headline the Summer Sessions Festival in Stirling this July. The Canadian singer joins Busted and Tom Jones in the lineup. The festival takes place at the foot of Stirling Castle from the 17th of June to the 6th of July.
Now, are children in Scotland more at risk from developing the eye condition myopia because they're spending too much time indoors in front of a screen?
Short-sightedness, the common name for myopia, is on the rise among young people, but researchers and students at Glasgow Caledonian University's Vision Centre are exploring natural light therapy as an affordable way of slowing down the condition, as Caitlin Hutchison reports.
As soon as I got the chance to wear some sort of contact lens, I jumped at it because then I was like everybody else.
Kieran was only 6 when his parents discovered problems with his eyesight, and he wore glasses for years. But he was conscious of having thick lenses, found himself on the receiving end of mean comments, and despite being a keen footballer, wanted to give it up.
He felt like the glasses held him back somehow. Even though he could see, it made him different. Football was his passion, so to see him like really nearly give up on it was quite sad.
Now, thanks to specialist contacts, he's waved goodbye to glasses and to contacts altogether.
Ortho-K lenses are the lenses you put in at night, and they rechange the shape of your eye, and you take them out in the morning and you can see throughout the day. It's really crazy how it works. Not having to wear the goggles or any form of contacts in my eye is brilliant.
But every patient is different.
These glasses are MyoSmart glasses, so they basically have dots on them, which make my eye focus in the middle, and that pushes it back into shape and is meant to slow the progress of myopia.
He's been coming to the clinic for 2.5 years after mum Katerina found his eyesight got much worse during lockdown. And with 1 in 5 children in the UK now suffering from the condition, it's thought factors like spending too much time indoors, glued to screens, could have something to do with it.
So he was not on screens massively, but probably he was not out playing outdoors.
The increase in the number of children who are becoming myopic is happening too quickly to just be due to genetics. So it's also partly due to changes in our lifestyle.
It's thought something as simple as the weather could make a huge difference, and being outside in daylight can help slow the worsening of myopia in children. Now, that's not always possible in Scotland, but there are ways around it.
9-year-old Fia uses this bright lamp as part of a trial for natural light therapy.
I've used it for half an hour every morning. It kind of just cheers me up a bit when it's very rainy outside and it's gloomy and dark.
It's the first study to explore natural light therapy as a way of slowing down myopia, and could end up being the most affordable way of treating the condition. Caitlin Hutchison, STV News in Glasgow.
Now to a story focused in the West, and a Glasgow-based driving instructor has told STV News he now teaches a pothole avoidance module during lessons. Matthew Worthington says the city's bumpy roads are terrifying for students to learn on. It comes after Glasgow was named Britain's pothole capital last week. The City Council says extra resources are deployed to deal with the issue during the winter months. As Brandon Cook reports.
This is a route well used by driving instructors like Matthew. Just beyond the roundabout is a test centre, but before students get there, they have to pass a large pothole.
I've lost actually 4 tyres within the last few months. It can be, well, it's obviously really annoying. The only good thing that's come from it is showing a student how to change a spare wheel, because not many people know how, but the knock-on effect can be you then need to go and get a new tyre, it's time out of your day, it's money, it can be quite detrimental to your business, to be fair.
It's become such a common hazard that local teachers are including them in lessons.
I actually teach a pothole avoidance lesson now, which is quite crazy, but it's showing students how to safely avoid potholes and to not just swerve without checking mirrors, for example, because driving's paramount safety, obviously.
Glasgow was named the UK's pothole capital at the beginning of the month. For every 1,000 people in the city, there's at least 11 unrepaired potholes.
It's an absolute nightmare. You can hardly drive along any street without your wheels going down somewhere. And sometimes they're positioned in such a way, like where I stay, that the traffic is coming one way, you can't even swerve to miss it, you need to go right over it.
The roads have always been bad in Glasgow, especially I used to live in Ibrox, and the roads are awful there.
Just last month I went over one and it wrecked my tyre, so I'm waiting for the council to see if they'll pay me back, but I don't think they will.
This local tyre centre says stories like that are all too common. They claim every second customer now is a pothole-related repair.
All our regular customers, we have them
in our system, so we know who's phoning, who's calling. When a new call comes in, we know it's a new call. It's a new customer. And just this morning, give you an idea, from 9 o'clock till about maybe right now at half 11, 12 o'clock, we've had about 18 phone calls for tyre repairs, all tyre related. Right? And just before you'd come in, we've done 4 tyres and 2 cars.
Glasgow City Council say they employ additional resources to deal with potholes through the winter, and while they inspect roads on a daily basis, it's important people report hazards in their area too. But there's growing frustration. An anti-pothole campaign group say more needs to be done. They're planning a protest outside the city chambers at the end of the month. Brandon Cook, STV News.
Scientists in Scotland are using cutting-edge technology to tackle a silent and serious lung condition. Bronchiectasis affects more than 5,000 people here, but that number is likely to be much higher as it's often undiagnosed or misdiagnosed.
It can lead to multiple infections due to a build-up of mucus in the lungs. It's hoped a new type of test will mean more patients are identified and their condition managed quicker. Vanessa Kennedy reports.
Every day, Kate has to conserve much of her energy for simple tasks like preparing a meal for herself and her husband. And living with breathlessness is something she's dealt with for many years. But when she was diagnosed with bronchiectasis, a condition she'd never even heard of, her symptoms all seemed to make sense.
I can look back and think of instances where I had to give up on some activity and I felt guilty. And now I realise I didn't need to feel guilty. I just wasn't capable. In many senses, it's been limiting and at times very depressing.
Bronchiectasis is a largely unknown condition where the airways of the lungs become widened, leading to a build-up of excess mucus that can make the lungs more vulnerable to infection. That's why scientists in Edinburgh are using cutting-edge technology to allow them to identify the bacteria that causes it.
What these people suffer from is ongoing chronic infections that can result in lung flare-ups or exacerbations, and that can lead to them going to hospitals. So what we're developing is a test that should take around 4 hours from sample to result, so that we'll know what infection is present and even be able to pick up multiple different infections if there's more than one present, and so we can target the treatment appropriately.
One of the challenges in bronchiectasis is these regular chest infections. And that's what causes the long-term damage. If you have regular infections, you cause long-term damage in the lungs. So for all that time that you're not getting the right treatment because you're having a late diagnosis or a misdiagnosis, you're getting this build-up of long-term damage.
The hope is that this technology will be adopted by the NHS and expanded globally so that those living with this little-known condition can manage it as soon as possible. Vanessa Kennedy, STV News, Edinburgh.
The Rahman's here with the sport. Anything worth talking about from the weekend, Rahman?
Oh yes. Good evening to you all. World Rugby are satisfied that officials did follow the right protocols in denying Scotland a dramatic last-gasp try in the Six Nations defeat to France. The heartbreaking finale to the match puts the Scots on 1 win and 1 loss in the championship. Prop Xander Ferguson believes they're overdue the rub of the green from officials. Jamie Borthwick reports.
The ball is held up for now, and there is the ball on the ground.
So I need to change my on-field decision to a try.
The conversation that had Scotland believing that they had snatched victory.
Guys, my on-field decision was held up, okay, because the ball was on the foot. It checks all camera angles. There is no conclusive evidence to say that it was a try. So there's no try, it's held up.
Only for the officials to change their mind and declare France triumphant.
Of course, watching the big screen, I was like, oh, has he got it down, has he not? And I saw black and white, ball on the ground, so I was waiting for it to call the try. He did deliberate over it quite a long time, but yeah, disappointed. Just, yeah, really gutted about it, and same as last week, you know, that's 2 weeks in a row we've had 2 tries in the last play of the game or the last minutes, and both haven't had the rub of the green for either one, so, and they both come back and looking like they both try, so I'm sure we'll get a review of that next week from the refs and we'll go from there.
World Rugby is satisfied that referee Nick Berry and TMO Brian McNeice followed the protocols correctly. Scotland had led for most of the match until Louis Bielbiaré's chip and chase. Their late goal line rally was to no avail.
It's sport, we know that.
and we have to be better. That's why you play and why you coach, is to win, but also get better. And we have to make sure we take winning and losing out the hands of referees and TMOs.
I'm sure that we'll look at the things we can get better at, because there's 3 games left that we really need to get after now. So that's what the focus is on, and getting better at what we can.
Scotland expect Kyle Steyn, Blair Kinghorn, WP Nell and Darcy Graham to return for the next match against England in 2 weeks' time. Graham, though, isn't fit enough to feature for his club Edinburgh this weekend. Jamie Borthwick, STV News.
Football, and after Celtic progressed to the quarter-finals of the Scottish Cup, Brendan Rodgers hit back at his critics, saying they won't bring him or his players down. The holders defeated St Mirren thanks to goals from Kyogo and Daizan Maeda. They'll face Livingston next after David Martindale's side edged out Partick Thistle after extra time. Stephen Naismith was delighted with his team's performance as Hearts won 4-1 at Airdrieonians. Rangers and Hibs will meet in the last 8 after their victories over Ayr United and Inverness Cally Thistle respectively. And Kilmarnock set up a tie away to Aberdeen after defeating Cove Rangers 2-0. Well, Morton will host Hearts in the quarterfinals of the Cup after their 2-1 win over Motherwell. Fir Park boss Stuart Kettlewell has backed Liam Kelly to respond positively after his error in the tie. The goalkeeper failed to deal with a corner, which resulted in Morton's opening goal. The Championship club doubled their lead in the second half. The visitors reduced the deficit by 1 late on.
I know what Liam will do when he comes in again this morning, and what he'll do for the remainder of the season and beyond is he gets his head down, he does his job, and he's a terrific influence to everybody else round about him, and I don't expect that to change anytime soon.
Athletics, and Josh Kerr has spoken of his delight after breaking Mo Farah's 2-mile indoor world record in New York last night. Kerr stormed to the finish line at the Millrose Games, posting a time of 8 minutes 0.67 seconds. It's the Scots' first world record of his career. At the same meeting, Laura Muir set a new British indoor record. She won the 2-mile race after Ethiopia's Medina Issa was disqualified.
As as I can, but I think that's the level about that I've become. And, I had to kind of go with the punches to start my career. It'd be good, but not world class. And then 2 world class and not world champion. And now I'm world champion. I was on fun with it.
Now we want to break every record we set last year. The words of Scottish Women's Premier League Managing Director Fiona McIntyre. In a wide-ranging interview, the league boss spoke with our reporter Ronnie Charters, who began by asking McIntyre her hopes for 2024.
I guess the short answer and the short-term answer is every record we broke last year, we want to break again. We don't want to be standing still and saying we did a great job last year. We want more people coming to our fixtures. We want more games on television. It's a constant drive to be better, and that's what I hope we're sitting here next year speaking about. That everything we delivered this year was better than 2023.
Would I ask you to look back on the biggest challenge that you faced in that year?
Clubs don't own their venues, and we're rescheduling fixtures. It can be really challenging. We're also really conscious all our teams aren't full-time yet. So we try and do what we can to make that situation as easy as we can. But that's the challenge, is that we are trying to run a really professional commercial league, but at the same time we're trying to be cognizant and understanding that all of our players aren't full-time yet, and we want to make sure they're included and feel part of the SWPL.
There have been some negative comments in recent weeks. You look at the likes of Joey Barton and whatnot, who are continuing to almost demonise some of the female pundits and footballers and coaches that we have in our game. How hurtful is that?
It's just really disappointing that in 2024 we have someone that thinks that's an appropriate way to use what is a pretty significant profile and platform he has in terms of number of followers, but I think it says more about him than the people he's speaking about, who most of them are hugely successful professionals who have earned their right to be where they are.
Another vehicle for that positive change has obviously been the national team. Everything that comes with the energy and drive of a major tournament. How crucial is it for the promotion of the game that we get the national team back to these big major tournaments?
It makes a big difference, and I think even when Scotland weren't in the Euros and the recent World Cup on the women's side, people were still talking about women's football. So we really want and need Scotland to be part of that. And when you look at the squad we undoubtedly have the capability of getting there, and I keep in touch with some of the players. I know they believe that, and hopefully the next campaign is a more successful one and they're back where they belong soon.
Fiona, thank you very much for joining us at STV.
Thank you.
And finally in golf, Scott Jamieson says the course at the Qatar Masters was a great test. That after the Scot finished third. That, folks, is all your sport tonight. See you again tomorrow.
Thanks, Raman. Well, now it's time for a look at the weather forecast with Sean.
A spell of sea air will be followed by a strong chance of you have to try these. TUI sponsors STV Weather.
Very good evening to you. Very showery out there. It's going to stay like that through much of the night. Fewest showers probably the further south we go into. Ayr, Girvan, southwards, a lot of dry weather here. Also across southern parts of Lanarkshire too. And here, with just a few showers coming through, the risk of some icy patches. Temperatures getting down to about 1 or 2 degrees Celsius in the countryside. Elsewhere, the temperatures staying higher because we hang on to more frequent showers. And yes, you can see some snow on the map there. Snow above around 400 metres over the tops of the hills and the mountains. There will be snow from those showers, but rain for most of us. Now tomorrow the good news is those showers head away to the north, but across lights of Oban, Mull, Col, Tiree, Fort William here we hang on to a good scattering of showers throughout the day. Elsewhere a lot of dry and sunny weather, although South Lanarkshire and probably around South Ayrshire will turn cloudier and rather wet by the end of the day. And unfortunately the weather is looking quite mixed through this week. Wednesday and also Thursday, weather fronts coming in from the south, so they're going to be our wettest days, but it will be mild. Temperatures looking up to about maybe 11 or 12 degrees Celsius in some spots, 54 in Fahrenheit during Wednesday, but it will be cloudy and also damp as well. The wettest weather though comes in on Thursday, so if you've got plans on Thursday, it is going to be very wet. Some heavy rain because we've got the centre of low pressure right over the top of us, so at least the winds will be light, it will be mild as well, 10 or 11 degrees, but it will be very wet for a wee while too. Bye-bye.
TUI sponsors STV Weather.
Well, that's all for the moment. I'll be back with the late news at 10:30.
Yeah, not the only one working late, Courtney. I'll be back with Scotland tonight at 10:40, just after you. We'll be looking at the calls for a Gaza ceasefire and also all the other main stories that have been running through the week. Last week, I should say. Join us then. Good night.
Good night.